Let's talk about another safer way to invest in biotech and biopharma. And that way is actually, it's interesting because in an effort to really curb cost and expedite R&D, many biotechs are now starting to outsource many of their clinical functions. And this goes to a class of providers better known as the contract research organizations, or CROs as they're called. Brian, what makes CROs so attractive as investment opportunities right now?
Well, as I'm sure many biotech investor knows, getting a drug through the regulatory approval process and conducting those clinical trials not only takes a long time, but it's extremely expensive. And that means they're going to be spending heavily on clinical trials. So the advantage of buying a CRO is that they're the ones that are directly benefiting from that spending, and they're also directly benefiting from that long lead time. So CROs partner with biotech companies and pharma companies, and they really handle all facets of the clinical trial process. So they can literally design the trial, get in contact with clinics to actually perform the trial. They can run the tests. They can analyze the data. They can help with the regulatory submission. So they kind of help if a company wants to outsource that work or even just partner to get consulting advice. CROs are a natural go-to partner for them. And the great thing for investors is that the CRO makes money on the drug basically no matter what the outcome is. So if a drug fails to live up to its expectations, well, the CRO still gets paid for conducting a trial. And another nice benefit is when a drug enters phase 1, by the time it gets through phase 3, that process can take many years. So if you partner with a CRO on phase 1 and you are going to take it through all the way to phase 3, well, those trials have to be conducted over a course of years. And you typically sign contract agreements with the CRO that lasts multiple years and multiple phases. So if a CRO wins a compound early on in its lifestyle, they get a lot of revenue visibility as the drug develops. So that's very attractive.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, right now, only about 40% of clinical development is currently outsourced. And some analysts are saying this could rise above 50% over the next few years. A couple of reasons why, a couple of drivers. One is just the cost of running these expensive, massive trials. Those are going to continue to grow, especially as many biopharma companies are continuing to expand and run trials on a global basis. You've also got, very complex regulations. In some cases, the FDA is starting to, back off in some ways and make it less complex. But in other ways and in other areas like gene therapies, those are going to be the more complex routes that many of these biopharmas will have to tackle. And they'll need a partner like a CRO to help get them through. In addition, another huge driver is just talking about, insurance reimbursement. We've seen and will continue to see, especially as we get through the next election cycle, continued pressure on drug pricing. You're seeing payers push back. You're seeing politicians get more involved in the mix. Maybe not. We'll actually see something happen when it comes to drug pricing. But either way, all of this amounts to just continued downward pressure on margins for many of these large biopharma companies. So biotechs, especially the smaller ones, need the expertise. They need the cost efficiencies, and really they need the global reach that many of these CROs offer. Brian, are there any names in particular that stand out to you in the CRO space?
Yeah, there's a handful of them that are publicly traded, but my personal favorite is the largest one in the sector, which is called IQVIA Holdings. This is a company with 55,000 employees. It literally services 8,000 different customers, and they handle soup to nuts from basically discovery all the way through commercialization. If a drug company or a biotech needs help with anything, they can get that basically from IQVIA. So not only do they have resources and a huge army of researchers and regulatory experts that are in multiple countries that they can use, but IQVIA actually owns a database that has 530 million patient records in it. And they can use that to analyze prescribing habits, and that can help sales reps with doctor targeting after a drug gets approval to really make the commercialization process as easy as possible. And to give some scale, this company currently has a backlog of future projects worth $16.4 billion. So these guys are absolutely enormous.
And I love their focus and their push really on the data end, because you can see that playing out in so many different ways. You have access to clinical trial data. Once a drug is on the market, they also have a database that's looking at prescribing trends as well. So I really do think it equips the sales force just with better data to go after markets to really drive top line for this company. And also, too, they're also expanding globally. I know they've recently been expanding into the Asian Pacific markets as well. So really interesting there. And I guess there's some other companies in this space as well. Any others come to mind?
Yeah, there's a couple of smaller ones. I mean, IQVIA is definitely the big dog in the area, but there are a handful of other CROs that take up more niche focuses. But because they're smaller, they tend to be growing quicker. So a couple for investors to put on the radar is one's called PRA Health Sciences. Their ticker is PRAH. And then there's Syneos Health, which is the sponsor of the show. Their ticker is SYNH. And then there's another one called Icon. Their ticker is ICLR. All these companies have their own niches within the industry, but since they're smaller, if you want to ride the wave, perhaps they could be more interested in looking at, because they could post faster growth on a percentage basis.
Yeah, that's a great point on the smaller companies. What we've seen over the past few years in the CRO space is a lot of M&A action, and I think that is set to continue. And if you think about it strategically, it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, together, not only can they combine and leverage a much wider network of clinical trial sites, they can also now expand their clinical trial participant pools and really start to utilize the big data and the AI tools that many of them are going after. So it would not surprise me to see more M&A heading in the next few years in this space as well.